Welcome to Ringsiders. Jamie here again with Callum. How are you doing, Callum?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself, Jamie?
Very well, thank you. We are joined today by former NWA Tag Team Champion. He's a member of Strictly Business. He's Royce Isaacs. Royce, how are you doing?
I'm all right, all things considered, man. It's a crazy world we're living in these days, but I just hit some legs at my apartment and ate some lunch, man. I'm doing good, all things considered.
Yeah, we were saying before the show, you've managed to avert one of the crises. You've actually got a bidet. That's what I think we need.
Dude, I mean, seriously, if you're listening to this and you're having a hard time with finding toilet paper and all that craziness, I would just recommend a bidet in general because I feel like it's cleaner. I feel like it's once you get used to it, it's much nicer and easier to do, and you're gonna save yourself a lot of trouble in these times with the kind of the mad TP rush. And I want to say that mine I got on Amazon for like, I don't know, like it was definitely less than $60. It was like $50 or something like that, which is like super reasonable. I installed it in like 30 minutes. And you know, if anyone gets something out of that, then good, because you know there's bigger things in wrestling happening in life right now.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I thought bidets were like thousands of dollars.
Me too.
I didn't know you could just buy them off Amazon.
Yeah, crazy. I always assumed that until I think maybe Colt Cabana or someone a while back was like, oh, you know, you could just buy that online and install it yourself for pretty cheap. And then I tried. Okay, so my original, like months ago, I tried to get a bidet just because I wanted one, and I tried to get one on like Wish or something like that. This is like probably 6 months ago, and it came with like Japanese instructions, and I was so lost, and like the parts weren't right for American plumbing and all this crap. It was like terrible. So finally, like once the kind of the crisis all hit and everything was going on, I was like, well, why don't I just actually do what I meant to do months ago and just get a step ahead of the game? And I'm super happy with my purchase. That's all I'm gonna say.
I think we're probably going to go on Amazon after this, aren't we?
Yeah, get a couple of bidets. Yeah, but now we've got the bidets sorted out, you know. Royce, we've got a few questions for you. Obviously, like we appreciate you coming on the show. One thing we always like to find out first is how did you get your break into wrestling? What was it? Have you always been a fan?
Yeah. No, I watched it. I watched it with my dad when I was growing up. Like he's my number one fan, and he goes to the NWA Powerrr tapings and everything like that. Like he's all about it. Yeah. If a lot of the people that go to the tapings know who he is now because he's a character. He's great, but he and I watched it when I was a kid, and like I just got really enamored by it. And I'm 31 right now, so I also was when I was a kid watching it was like during the Attitude Era when it was at kind of its coolest and its hottest. So like I was also definitely like it was during a time that like, oh wow, like this is, of course, any kid that's growing up is going to be like, this is what it's all about, you know?
Yeah, I'm 31 as well. So I grew up watching the Attitude Era. And I remember the first time I saw wrestling, I was like, what is this? And from the moment I saw it, I was hooked. It was like unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And I don't think there's been a day go by since then that I haven't thought about wrestling in some capacity. I can't imagine what my life would have been like. It might have been, my life would be completely different without it. You know what I mean? It's
We wouldn't be sat here.
Yeah, we wouldn't be sat here right now. But
because I'm a lot older than you two, Royce. I'm not going to go into that, but I grew up. Obviously, I grew up as a Hulkamaniac, but
oh, nice.
I'm the same as Callum. Wrestling's always been there for me. It's that one constant, and it's something that will never ever go away. My passion will never ever go away. It's the greatest thing in the world.
Was there a wrestler who first got your attention? Can you remember who the first guy was that stood out to you?
You know, I'm not sure if he was the first, but like Stone Cold was definitely my guy.
Yeah,
the guy that stuck with me, and like The Rock, obviously. But I mean, one of the good things I thought in the Attitude Era was even the mid-carders really still got plenty of promo time and plenty of vignette time and like time to work and get themselves over. And so a lot of the most memorable things about the Attitude Era, I feel like, are you know, like the whole card was interesting and you cared about. Whereas I think, not, and this isn't like an indictment of WWE, but I think for a lot of companies, after you spend a lot of time on the top guys and the top stars, and then you invest less so into mid card and lower card, especially with stuff other than just matches. And I think that does a disservice to your talent, especially because if they're ever going to get to that top level, they're going to have to know how to cut a good live promo, how to do a backstage vignette, how to interact with people. Like it all goes together. So I don't know. I even though Stone Cold and The Rock were like my guys, it's like there was people all over the card that I was really into. Like it was super enjoyable to watch, Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman and, Kai and Ty and all these, people from all over the card and from all over the world. I thought WWE had some amazing talent back then, and they really knew what to do with it.
Yeah, everybody on the show was doing something. Like you said, all the mid-carders had something going on. When you watch an old episode from the Attitude Era and even the early Ruthless Aggression era, there was always, all the mid-card was doing something. And I've always thought you need a strong mid-card to support the main event too, because obviously some of those mid-carders are going to go into the main event, and some main eventers might come back down to the mid-card. So yeah. I've always thought you need a strong mid-card in any company really to support the whole show in general. And I think that's something that I'm sure you agree that NWA Powerrr is doing very well. Everybody has something going on. They might not be on every show, but everybody on Powerrr is doing something. And I think that's what sets it apart from the other companies right now.
I agree. I think that the last couple of tapings, it was like I've basically been on every or almost maybe one or two episodes out of the last 12 that I haven't been on. And I haven't been wrestling on all of them, but there's been something where for whatever reason I'm shown or I'm doing something or whatever. That's really, really powerful. And that kind of exposure really means a lot to me at this point in my career, and getting to show off some of my growth as a performer and my range as a performer is really, really big for me. I think that, I don't know, it's to sidetrack back to what we were kind of talking about. I think it's also one of the problems with almost everyone tag division is they don't get tag team storylines anymore. It's like tag teams are kind of just relied on to have a really good match, but you can have an amazing tag match. With double the amount of people, generally you can have a super amazing tag match. And there's a lot of really, really talented tag teams out there, obviously in NWA, but also in other places. And a lot of times it's it's easy to book a single storyline because you just have to have one person involved in whatever. Sometimes it's harder, I feel for people to book a tag storyline, because then you have 4 different people that you're worrying about or whatever, or how do you focus on the one person and then generally shift it to the other person later or whatever. And I think it does a disservice to tag team wrestling, because tag team wrestling, there was a time where tag team wrestling, a good tag team match could be on top instead of just a singles match. And you really don't see that much anymore. But I think that you have teams that are talented enough and can work well enough to do that kind of stuff, but they're not going to ever be able to draw money or be in that position if you never really take the ball and run with them and have real tag team stories that aren't just we want to be better than these guys or whatever. You have to have a little bit more to bite into and a little bit more depth, just like you do with a single storyline.
Yeah, I've always, you've hit the nail on the head there. I've always thought tag team wrestling in itself is an art form. It's it's almost a different style of wrestling to just singles wrestling. It's not there's so many tag matches you see where it's almost the same formula. You know how it's going to go, but when you see a really good tag team match, like you said, that could be a main event in itself. The matches are mostly good, but the stories that support them aren't always there. And I think that's something that's definitely missing in wrestling nowadays, the stories that go with tag team wrestling, because you had that back in the day. And I think there's almost a stigma on it now where, as you mentioned, you're going to get a good tag team match on most shows, but it's not going to be the main event. And can you ever see it going back that way? Or do you think in NWA, for example, they put quite an emphasis on the tag team division? Can you see a tag team main event coming soon, especially with the Crockett Cup coming up?
Well, to actually, before I answer your question, to quickly, I guess, answer something that I would have to address. Earlier today, this is Monday morning, they released a statement that Crockett Cup has been canceled. So we're not going to have events until June, unfortunately, is what it's looking like right now. So that is a shame, especially because Crockett Cup does put such an emphasis on tag team wrestling. That said, going forward, I think that one thing NWA has done amazingly on all levels is everyone has stories. Everyone has things going on. There's interactions between now, me, Tom, May Valentine, Camille. Like, there's obviously Nick is in the mix as part of Strictly, the leader of Strictly Business, rather. Eli Drake and James Storm just came into the tag division. The Rock and Roll Express are there. Like, we have pieces in place to tell stories, and I think that the NWA will do that, because if you look at the rest of the card, everyone is getting stories and getting some good mic time. So I think that stuff will definitely develop. But obviously, losing Crockett Cup, at least for now, certainly, that's going to hurt.
Yeah, understandably. I mean, I wasn't aware that it had been.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
But I can understand why. Obviously, health has got to come first. But just on a sidebar, Royce, I've got to ask you. You're talking about the tag teams. What's it like having the Rock and Roll Express backstage? That must be invaluable to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty darn cool to have legends like that in the locker room, and especially for me and Tom to get to kind of work them repeatedly in such a short amount of time. It's like you can't put a price on experience like that. It's cool because, like I said, like, my dad's in the crowd, and my dad watched the Rock and Roll Express.
That's awesome.
Like, now he gets to see his son wrestle against the Rock and Roll Express, So
that must be quite surreal for him and yourself. Yeah.
No, absolutely. But that's one of the really, really cool things about working for the NWA is, how much, things like that do get to happen. And, it's like got such a good mix of new school talent, then also the talent that they've had from the past that's come back now. And, I think it's a really, it's a really talented locker room, and it's a really good, like, diverse locker room as well.
Yeah, we were actually saying when we spoke to Joe Galley, one of the best parts of NWA Powerrr so far has been the variation. Like you said, it's got the old school and the history, but with that new spin on it as well. And in that way, I think it's almost like NWA Powerrr is the true alternative in wrestling at the moment, where, like, you've got a few companies that claim to be an alternative, and they are, but I think NWA is the alternative in the sense that it's doing something completely different to everywhere else. And I think that's what's bringing in a lot of new fans.
I super agree with you there. I think a lot of people, I guess I'll just kind of say what you said, but in different words, so I sound smart. But basically, it's one of those things where I feel like a lot of people try to be WWE light, and we've never really tried to do that. We've always tried to do NWA Powerrr and do our own thing. And I think it's been a while since someone's really tried to do something different and diversify like that. Like Lucha Underground is the last thing I can think of that was like that different from the basic style of like trying to really do their own thing. And to me, that's more interesting. Like, we don't need to all be doing the same stuff. And that way we can actually really all kind of fill a need or fill a niche or whatever it is. Like, we can all make money and we can all do well without feeling like we're actually, even though it's a competition and we're all competing, we don't have to feel like we're stepping on each other's toes, because it's like, no, what we're doing here is different enough that like we're not, we are appealing to a different audience. And I think that's really important. And as a wrestler who, this is a performance art, and if we are going to be artists about it, I think it's more artistically fulfilling as well to be able to do something that's a little bit outside of the box and different at times.
Yeah, like if this was acting, for example, it's like an actor always playing the same role. I'm sure an actor would like to play different roles that diversify a bit. So if you're doing NWA Powerrr and then going to WWE, for example, or vice versa, it's like you're playing a different role and you get to do something a little bit outside the box. And I think that's what's so cool about NWA Powerrr is you're seeing these guys who you're familiar with, but they're in a completely different environment. And you don't know how they're going to act. You don't know what the motives are. And it's refreshing to watch. Like Ken Anderson, for example, that's someone a lot of people are familiar with in WWE and Impact. But he's completely different in NWA Powerrr. And it's like he's a completely new wrestler, which is quite cool as a fan.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think you've seen a lot of people come in that, like, there's certain people that you're like, oh yeah, this is like the act that I remember that I wanted. And then there's certain people that you're like, oh my goodness, like this is so different. Like another person I would point to like that would be someone like Aaron Stevens, which, everyone knows him as Damian Sandow, and he did amazing as Damian Sandow. And now he's Shooter Stevens doing something much, much different.
He's incredible. He has me in tears every time I watch him. He's so self-aware and understands his character to a T.
What he said. He really gets his character, doesn't he? He's spot on with everything he does.
I agree. And it was crazy, too, to think, like, that this kind of started with him doing this kind of like, okay, well, like, I'm addressing, like, I want to say, like, his first time on camera, on the microphone, he was kind of talking about how he'd been an actor and this, that, whatever. And I was thinking, oh, okay, he's going to do this, like, Hollywood actor thing, which is like cool. Obviously, it's great. But like I was like, oh, it's going to be like similar to certain other people, like like the Miz or whoever that have done like I'm a former actor or I'm an actor role.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, completely just like to the left. Like, wait, what's going on? Now he's a karate badass and he's teaming.
Yeah.
With
like when he was coming out in like Shakespeare outfits and stuff, I was like, this is amazing. Like that. If that was anybody else doing it, I don't know if it would work, but he's just so good at the comedy, but also being serious when he needs to be. It just works.
One of the best things.
Believable.
Sorry, what was that?
I said he's so believable. Like you believe his character. He believes he is a third degree karate master.
He reminds me in a lot of ways of like someone like the Genius or something like that, who can kind of go both ways, like can be very almost non-threatening and comedic, or even a little bit effeminate in 1 second, and then the next second he turns it up on you and he's scary and you're like, oh shit, like this guy's a real threat to me right now. And I think that's really important. And I think people should kind of take note of that, because a lot of people don't necessarily do that well, or they have characters where they can't, where like their character is strictly comedy, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's something impressive about someone that can have that much range in one character, where 1 minute you're thinking, wow, this guy's a total joke, and then the next minute you're uncomfortable with the level of violence that he's just inflicted on someone, and it kind of makes you go, oh yeah, like, no matter what, this guy is the funniest guy on the roster, but he's also a serious threat to anyone.
I think one example of that is around early 2000s, Kurt Angle. He'd be wearing like a stupid little hat, singing to Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he'd have you in tears of laughter. But then the same episode, he'd be breaking someone's ankle, and you never for a second thought he was a joke, even though he's so good at the comedy. And you never for a second didn't think he was a threat. I just think Kurt Angle is one of the all-time greats of being able to do comedy and the serious straight-up wrestling as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with you there. I'm a big Kurt Angle fan, and I'd probably put him in like my top 3 of all time, especially when it comes to in ring. But I mean, man, he could do it all. Like it's like you think like, oh man, he's one of the top in ring, and you're like, oh well, he's also one of the top at like being a character. Oh well, I guess he's just one of the top. Like Kurt Angle is man, he is freaking amazing.
He had no right to be that good for somebody who, you know what I mean? He didn't grow up in wrestling, professional wrestling anyway, but he just took to it so easily and made it look so easy as well. I don't think anyone's ever transitioned into professional wrestling as well as Kurt Angle has.
Yeah, no, I mean, just otherworld athlete, otherworld character. He shot to the top so damn fast, and like because he was that good to absolutely deserve it. And he's one of those guys that I think, like at the time when I was a kid, I was just like, boo, and you're the worst, and you suck. But like there was still that part of me in the back of my head that was like, all right, this guy's pretty fucking cool. Like this guy is kind of awesome. You know?
Yeah, it's almost hard to hate because he's so good.
Yes. Yeah, it's like the conundrum of like being too good at your job as a heel, where you're like, okay, well, people kind of love it now because he's too good at being hateable that you're like, damn, like that's impressive. Kind of have to be hats off to that guy.
Yeah, so would you say a match against Kurt Angle is on your dream matches?
Oh God, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. That would be. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to describe something like that. That would be so cool. I was also lucky enough. The tag match where I got to tag with Scott Steiner on NWA Powerrr was absolutely a dream match. In terms of like, I think Steiner is one of those guys that I looked up to so much, and in such a way that I actually preferred tagging with him as opposed to tagging against him or wrestling him one-on-one. It was more cool to be like, man, I'm about to tag I'm about to tag Scott Steiner's hand, and then like, you know, to make him the legal man or vice versa, or I'm on the apron talking with Scott Steiner right now. Like that to me was like a total dream come true.
Yeah, it's in the history books now. You've tagged with Scott Steiner. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Steiner is. I was just talking with Alex Coughlin. He's one of the LA Dojo young lions for New Japan, and we were just saying how impressive he was. Like especially in his early days, all the he would do the literally just the standing like backflip, like a moonsault world strongest slam thing.
Yeah, I saw that for the first time the other day, actually, on, I think I was on Reddit, just browsing, and I saw Scott Steiner on the top rope do the moonsault in the fall-away slam. And how does he do that? Because it's not that he was a small guy back then either.
He was built.
He was just an absolute freak athlete. Like
I think he goes under the radar as has been very underrated back in, you know, where you go back to watching like the Steiner brothers matches, and Scott Steiner for me was very much ahead of his time with some of the things that he did.
Absolutely. He's almost like a modern day, it's like Brian Cage, maybe, for example, a big built guy who can do all these high flying moves. Scott Steiner was, like I said, ahead of his time. And the things he was doing, like he'd do, obviously the Frankensteiner was impressive, but he'd do it while running, and he wouldn't even use his hands. It's almost hard to think like how someone that big could do it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Scott Steiner, it's just, I think a lot of people don't realize how good he was and still is.
No, I totally agree. I've always been a huge fan of both the Steiners. But Scott especially was just, for me, so underrated. I don't think he gets the credit that he really deserves.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think of like even like Rick, there was a finish to like, oh man, it might be like, I want to say it's like an early 90s, either Mania or Royal Rumble. And I want to say they're facing like Samoan SWAT team or something like that. And Rick Steiner's in like a doomsday device position, and he catches one of the Samoans into like a power slam off the other Samoan's back for the 3 count. And it's just like, what do you like? This is insane. This is like 92. This isn't like PWG.
Yeah.
Do it. You're so good.
Yeah, like
Yeah. Oh, I want the was it the head shrinkers? Was it like the Royal Rumble '93 or something like that? I seem to be. I remember. I do seem to vaguely remember it. And again, Rick Steiner was another guy who was very, very underrated. And I think tag team wise as well, you always hear people going about the greatest tag teams of the Road Warriors, etc. I think the Steiners are up there, top three at least for me, as one of the best tag teams of all time.
Me, but yeah, I would say they got to be in anyone's top 5, and if not, then you don't know what you're talking about to me.
Absolutely, totally agree.
What would you say so far, going back to NWA Powerrr, what's been the biggest difference wrestling on NWA Powerrr to say like maybe an independent show or anything else that you've done previously? With it being like in front of an audience, like in a studio, what's the biggest difference doing it like that?
Well, I think to me the coolest thing with our style of studio wrestling is obviously you worry, especially because these are long days. The tapings will run for quite a bit of time. We get there really early, obviously. So, sometimes we're there at 11, 12 in the morning, and then we're there till 11, 12 at night. But the actual taping might last from, let's say, 6 p.m. to 10:30. And that's a long time for an audience to sit there and have to see maybe they see me 3-4 times in that time period, come in and out. And, it would be totally understandable if by the 4th time they were like, okay, we get it. It's Royce. Great. But one thing I would say is, man, NWA Powerrr might have the best fans that, I've performed for, because it doesn't matter if it's an hour 1 or hour 4, they get up, they get live, and they actively, it's not just a studio audience, for a TV show where it's they're supposed to applaud now. It's they're actually doing it because they care about what's going on. They care about the show. And you can tell because if they're heckling you about your actual storyline and not just throwing a volleyball in the crowd or whatever, or beach ball in the crowd or whatever. It's they're gonna talk shit to you that's gonna hurt because you're like, oh man, they had to think about that. That was actually took some effort. Or some of the amazing reactions that some of the people have gotten for, some of the baby faces have gotten on some crazy victories or performances or whatever, or some of the reactions to some of the surprises that have happened, Marty showing up or Brody showing up or Steiner showing up. It's they're there for everything. And I think that makes everything more enjoyable for the fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely on our bucket list now.
Well, we said this when we spoke to Joe Galley. It's obviously, I've never done WrestleMania. Callum has, but I've actually put going to Powerrr is on my joint number 1 on my bucket list now. We're going to WrestleMania. It just looks electric. The atmosphere just looks fantastic. I want to be a part of that one day.
Absolutely, that would be awesome, man. Definitely, that'd be really, really cool if you guys made it to a Powerrr taping.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do it.
We'll get there. Believe me, it'll happen.
Yeah, once everything gets back to normal a little bit, it'll happen, brother.
Do you have any plans on coming to the UK when things are back to normal?
I would love to. I've never wrestled in Europe, and that's one of those things that's definitely a big bucket list kind of item for me. I've been lucky enough in my career to wrestle in Japan and wrestle in Mexico, and I would say that Europe is and especially the UK, because I know they've had such a long history with loving wrestling and having it be such a big part of entertainment over there. I would be all about it. I think now, especially because obviously I tag team with a guy from the UK and Bram, or excuse me, Tom, and I would really like that. I know it's one of those things that obviously there's the bigger issues with Corona and all that first, but once things settle down, that's definitely something that I would love to have happen. And I think that me and Tommy could really tear it up over there. And I think I don't know. I have nothing but respect for the scene over there, because there's some really, really big indies over there, and obviously you guys are doing something right because WWE's put so much stock into building their own brand over there as well.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be great to have you over here because there's already a few people that I could see you having good matches with as a tag team or singles, or even tag teaming with. And we always bring up one example. There's a guy from our hometown in Hull called Nathan Cruz, and he's absolutely fantastic. He's the epitome of like understanding your character. He's almost like he's quite similar to Nick Aldis in a lot of ways, and that's what makes me think he'd be a good fit in Strictly Business or even as a match against as well. So if ever you do come to the UK, keep your eyes on Nathan Cruz because that's someone who I reckon you'd definitely be able to do something with.
Absolutely. No, that sounds great. I'll definitely have to keep my eyes out for him. And, it's one of those things that, like, I was lucky enough to have a match with Nick Aldis. I guess it'd probably be almost, like a year and a half, 2 years ago now at this point, before I even did anything for the NWA. And then lo and behold, next thing you know, it's Crockett Cup 2019. And, I'm, working for them. And then lo and behold, 6 months after that, I'm in a faction with Nick Aldis. So it's like, it's one of those things, man. Nathan Cruz, I'll definitely keep an eye out for. And he's someone that if someone's comes to me that highly recommended, I'm always down for some competition. And then it's like, all right, that's kind of your chance to show your resume in wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he does wrestle all over the world, Nathan, as well, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he's not just UK based.
He's actually just got back from doing, I think it's maybe his fourth stint in America. So he does come to America as well. So maybe you can mix it up over there as well. I know he's got 2 goals and he wants to wrestle in Japan and wrestle in the NWA. And I think wrestling the NWA is kind of a newer goal for him. But I think it is for a lot of guys now as well. It's always been like the goal for everybody was to get to WWE. And I think now this wrestling worldwide is doing so well. I don't think everyone's goal has to just be WWE anymore. I think there's other goals for everybody, like wrestling in Japan. Japan's doing amazing. You can be from the UK and just want to reach the top of the UK. If you're in America, you might want to wrestle for NWA Powerrr. And I think it's good for everybody involved that you don't just have to have one goal anymore.
Yeah, I think it's healthy, man. Like, I think that the more places there are that people can make money and that people can give themselves the exposure to make more money and build their brand and do better, it only helps strengthen things for everyone else. And it's only a better market, especially for the wrestlers and for the fans. When there's more, job openings and opportunities and more different places that if you're good at this style or that style or whatever, like you can viably, really do well for yourself. That's I hope also that with how everything is going now that stays, true in the upcoming time.
Yeah.
Obviously you'd like to remain positive and think so. And I have faith that that will come out of this and everything will be good. But, man, like I started wrestling. It'll be 6 years in April. So next month. And leading, up into this, things have been better on the indies and on the major promotions than they've ever been previously during my time in wrestling. And that's, obviously a really good, really good thing. So hopefully we can keep that going.
Yeah, absolutely. I've said this for a while now. It's probably the best time to be a wrestling fan, probably since the Attitude Era. I think you've just got so much out there now that we're just spoiled. So I'm just, I come home from work. I'm like, what shall I watch tonight? Shall I watch NWA? There's so many things. And I think it is the best time to be a wrestling fan at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. We went from like having when I was a kid, like the Monday Night Wars, where it was like, all right, Monday, what are you watching? Like you have one option, this, that, whatever. Now, especially partly because we have, a lot of streaming options where you can watch something on demand and this, that, whatever, but also people put out content on different days. It's like okay, cool. Yeah, like there's Raw on Monday, there's Powerrr and AEW Dark on Tuesday, there's AEW on Wednesday. It's like you can go through your whole week, or if you miss a few days or whatever, boom, now like Friday, I'm going to stream all my stuff and catch up on all of it and binge watch or whatever. It's like you have so many different options. It's just like the option era. It's great.
Yeah, we actually had a sleepover at yours, didn't we, the other day, Jamie?
We did.
And we watched Dark, Powerrr, Dynamite, and NXT all in one night, and I was like, you just couldn't have done this a couple of years ago.
It was about half past 2 in the morning. I was like, I think we should go to sleep now, but it was great. It was literally, we went from one thing to the other, and I'm like, I'm binging NXT UK. I'm about 4 weeks behind with NXT UK, so I'm just, I'm having a night where I'm just going to binge and catch up with that, and it's just great.
There's just an incredible amount of like you said, streaming services, even to the independents, to like showcase it. You didn't have this 10 years ago. I used to watch a lot of independent wrestling. I'd watch Ring of Honor and PWG, but I'd have to get the DVDs. I'd have to buy them on the website. Yeah. And now there's just a streaming service for everybody nowadays. I've never known a time better to be a wrestling fan.
Yeah, no, we're all very lucky in terms of that, for sure. I remember there was a time when like I first kind of got into wrestling, I just thought like got into wrestling as in started actually training myself. I just thought it was like, oh, there's WWE, there's TNA, there's Ring of Honor, and independent wrestling was just PWG. I didn't realize that there was all these other small shows around.
Yeah, it is quite eye-opening when you realize how many indies there are, because even going back about 10 to 15 years ago, there was still a local indie in every state. Even in the UK, it's
the same over here, isn't it? Like every city seems to have its own promotion.
Yeah, it's crazy, because when you're younger, you do just think it's the big companies, but then when you start looking, everywhere has a company, and there's companies everywhere now. Like every town in the UK has a local indie, and I can't even stress, like 15 years ago, I'd have killed for that, just knowing that there's so much wrestling available. And yeah, it's great.
I love it. I just love the option. I love having that availability to be able to just chill out and just like, right, I'm going to watch this, I'm going to watch that. It's just perfect.
One thing I was going to mention is we were actually saying on Twitter before, we know a lot of wrestlers might be losing bookings and dates upcoming soon. Do you actually have a merchandise store or anything that you want to plug?
So I do not have a pro wrestling tees or a store, but if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram at Royce Isaacs, just DM me. I have shirts, I have pins, I have pictures, I have all kinds of stuff, and I'll be more than happy to get that out to anyone and anyone that wants to support and everything like that. I really do. Every dollar counts, and every dollar is appreciated, especially. Obviously I'm very lucky to have the NWA and have a situation there where I have, a monthly income and whatnot, but still we are in a situation that's a little bit crazy. So I'd say, first of all, obviously take care of yourself, make sure your bills are paid and you're good. But if you like me or you like the interview or whatever, and you want to support, by all means, DM me, holler at me, and I'll send you some merch.
I'll be DMing you about the pins, because I do collect pins, so I'll be in touch about them.
Yeah, and I get paid next week, Royce, so expect a DM from me as well. So.
It's not my first. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else you want to plug before we wrap this one up? Any upcoming events? Or, I mean, obviously it's a little touch and go at the moment, but is there anything else you want to
plug? Unfortunately, all the upcoming events are not going to be happening, at least for a little while. But I would just say, fans, if you're out there and you're listening, keep your head up. I hope we have a wide there's a wide catalog on both YouTube for NWA Powerrr and just in general wrestling on there. There's obviously, you have all kinds of different streaming services and networks. There's plenty of entertainment. Go out, enjoy it. Or don't go out, rather. Stay in. Don't leave. Enjoy it. But, be smart, be safe, take care of yourself, and, we will get through this together. And if if listening to this podcast kind of helped, if you took your mind off things for a little bit and whatnot, then I'm just happy that I was able to do that. So,
well, that's awesome. We appreciate you coming on today as well, making the time to speak to us for a bit. It's definitely lifted our spirits. We do like just having a talk about wrestling, and it's been great that you've been able to join us today. Is there anywhere we can find you on social media? You said you've got Twitter. Do you have an Instagram as well, or anything else?
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram at Royce Isaacs. I have a Facebook page and everything too. Like one of the like pages. I think I'm at the friend limit for the actual Facebook page and whatnot. And that's honestly it. I don't have like a LinkedIn or anything to give anyone. So I'm not gonna give out my social security number or nothing. So that's
that's my next question.
Your credit card number and the last 3 digits. Yeah, thank you for joining us. It'd be great to have you on again sometime in the future, maybe after the Crockett Cup and everything's settled down a bit, maybe reflect on the Crockett Cup in the future. But yeah, thank you for joining us, Royce. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Really appreciate it, Royce.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys, and keep doing what you do, baby.
Thank you. Speak to you soon.
Yep. Bye-bye.